If it cannot break its egg's shell, a chick will die without being born. We are that chick. The world is our shell. If we do not crack the world's shell, we too shall die without being born. We must smash that shell for the revolution of the world. For the revolution of the world. What does the word revolution mean? Does it mean revolt, overthrow of despots, and the establishment of something new? Or does it mean a turn of the wheel, or the orbit of celestial bodies, and merely the repetition of a cycle destined to end in the same place that it began? Winter follows autumn, follows summer, follows spring, follows winter. Does everything change, or does nothing change? Can it be both? Hello, I'm Solmatol. You may know me from some of my previous video works, particularly Pathologic, which is a piece of media that prominently features themes of theatre, performance, and deconstruction, much like my favourite anime does. I am here to talk to you about Revolutionary Girl Utena. This video became so absurdly long that I've had to split it into multiple parts, and is intended to cater to as wide a variety of an audience as possible. There are people watching who haven't seen it at all, but maybe know of it by name, or know its references in other shows. There are people watching this that have seen the anime and want to see in-depth discussion of its plot points. There are people watching this who don't know anything about what the show is, but probably just saw that I posted a video or stumbled across this by accident, and, well, welcome to you as well. So, the point of this whole endeavour is that no matter what, you should be able to find something in this video series for you, whether you have seen the show or not. Revolutionary Girl Utena is dense. It's super goddamn dense, and as a consequence, it can be kinda intimidating to a new audience. The visual storytelling and writing are very tightly interwoven, and a lot of folk get completely lost with it, or if they're watching casually, a lot of the subtlety passes them by. I should know I was one of the people that watched it casually, and I didn't realise how much I had missed until an obsessive set of rewatches. There are 4 main story arcs in a movie, and each of these will form a separate part of this video series. If you're already super familiar with the TV show and don't want to sit through all of that and just want to understand what the hell was going on with the movie, for example, then you can skip right ahead to the movie section without watching all the rest. Or, if you specifically want to get to grips with the bizarrity that is the Black Rose arc, then you can ignore the rest and begin there. If you want the piece-by-piece breakdown of nearly every bit of symbolism contained in every episode, then this video series will cover the scene-by-scene plot information and visual artistry of each episode in depth. You can think of these story chapters of each video as a sort of viewing companion, a guided tour of sorts, for those who may have gotten lost in the maze-like symbolism, or just want to hear the plot told in a more straightforward manner. If you already know the show well and want to hear more specific, detailed analysis on metaphor and themes without having to listen to the specific plot details that you're probably already familiar with, well, you can skip past the story chapters and straight to the analysis chapters. Timestamps for all of this is going to be in the video description below.
I mean, if you do that, you'll miss the slap dates, but I guess that's your loss.
The what?
Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it. Continue.
Okay then. There's also going to be a few very short intermissions in the show to give you a chance to take a break, stretch your legs, drink some water, maybe even put the video down for a while and go do something else. The intent of this whole thing is to be watched essentially like a mini-series. God help you if you're trying to do this all in one sitting. Don't do that to yourself. You owe yourself better than to listen to me ramble all night. Or do, if you're using this video as sleep ASMR. Apparently some of you do that with my videos. I'm not going to judge you. That said, I do hope you enjoy the show. This performance is a lot. So, take a seat. Get comfortable. The Shadow Girl ushers will take your tickets and guide you to your seats. Please feel free to wander out and back anytime. There's popcorn and drinks in the foyer.
Go guy, go guy.
Have you heard?
Have you heard the news?
Zulma Tool is making a video on Revolutionary Girl Utena. It looks to be a mountain of a show.
Doesn't the world have enough mountains already? Why is she building a new one?
So she can climb it?
Why does anyone climb a mountain? It's so exhausting.
Plus, there's the altitude sickness.
Well, she is a doctor. She can treat that.
The view from the mountaintop is nice, though.
My feet hurt thinking about it. I'll stay here.
I feel tired enough just from this banter.
Go on without us, Sol. Good luck.
We believe in you.
Do we?
I give her 2 hours before she collapses.
It's admirable, though, to be so ambitious.
But was it really such a good idea?
You two, stand up. We have a job to do around here.
Looks like we've been caught.
Ugh, we never get any breaks. I think that's against union rules.
Each of you, grab a rope.
I guess we're climbing this mountain after all.
1, 2, 3. Pull!
Are you okay?
Revolutionary Girl Utena is an anime that I really, truly adore. It's one of my favorite pieces of media, full stop. Like, I love this as much as I love Pathologic, if not more so. Working on the video about it like this is a passion project for me. But despite the absurd length of this video series, I cannot comprehensively cover every reading of the show. In fact, even after all this is said and done, there will still be vast parts of the symbolism, metaphor, and theory that I won't even have slightly touched on. There's an insane level of depth here. It's just like that. The thing about good art is that it's like a mirror. What you see in it is often merely a reflection of yourself. And to misquote an old ex-Jedi, it is there to show you what your own eyes cannot yet see. And what you might pick up from watching the show might be, well, extremely different from what I pick up. And given that, I'm going to highly encourage you to watch this show for yourself before delving into this video. I'll admit, the show serves that art as mirror function so well that I'm nervous writing about it. If you watch this video, you're bound to learn a lot about me as a person, as much as you learn about Revolutionary Girl Utena. By telling you what I see in it, I'm inadvertently going to be revealing a huge amount about myself. But hey, maybe that'll be good for algorithm ratings. Projecting uncountable truths about oneself for the whole world to see is the basis of parasocial relationships, right? In short, behold this work of art that I love, and behold my vulnerability as I talk about it. I beg you not to judge me too harshly. This video will absolutely be breaching deep spoiler territory right from the start. I'll give a bit of forewarning when the major spoilers are going to creep in, but might be safe to assume that this video will heavily spoil pretty much everything. So, why is this show in particular so renowned? There's many reasons, but perhaps some of the most important are how it influenced everything that came after. You can see hints of Revolutionary Girl Utena in almost every magical girl show that's been made since. Madoka Magica, of course, as well as She-Ra, Steven Universe, Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury, The Legend of Korra, including all the Karasami stuff, Owl House, the list goes on and on. Its influence really cannot be overstated. Its themes, imagery, and metaphors have inspired an astounding number of spiritual successors. How the original Fate Stay Night visual novel took heavy inspiration from this show, with characters like Shiru and Sakura having direct ties in their characterization to Utena and Anthy, and in turn that franchise has spawned 101 spin-offs, many of which have Revolutionary Girl Utena in their bones. Once you start spotting its influence everywhere, it's hard to unsee it. It's like Twin Peaks. It informed everything that came after so heavily that even things that didn't intend to reference it end up inadvertently doing so. Background. Who made it? Who wrote it? What the fuck is it? Well, Revolutionary Girl Utena was created by an artist collective calling themselves B-Papas, a strange but cute name. Its membership included Kunihiko Ikuhara, the primary director for the anime series, Chiho Saito, an artist and author of the manga version of the story, character designer Shinya Hasegawa, scriptwriter Yoji Inokida, and planner Yuichiro Oguro. These creators are responsible for the 39-episode anime series called Revolutionary Girl Utena, a manga of the same name but with a different plotline, the sort-of sequel movie called Adolescence of Utena, and a series of sequel manga called After the Revolution. They also had some hand in both the musical stage show adaptations and video game adaptations of the story. In this video, we are only going to be focusing on the TV series and movie. These by themselves are both so dense with material as to make the videos as long as they are, so if you want the analyses of the other material, I'm afraid you might have to look at the Empty Movement forums instead. The musicals are brilliant though, they are well worth a watch if you enjoyed the show. The show originally aired in April of 1997 on TV Japan, and concluded by December of that same year. It had multiple releases on VHS, DVD, and eventually a full remastering in 2009 that rekindled a strong worldwide fandom. Touching on extremely dark themes of trauma and abuse and delving into the forbidden realm of homosexual romance and relationships, the show was a hard sell to American networks. A very, very bizarre attempt to export it to America led to heavy censorship of any gay content and the renaming of the whole show to the strangely dubbed Ursula's Kiss, complete with wacky localization choices. The mess of intellectual property rights and legal concerns as to who owned the show's American release led to another strange situation in which only the first 13 episodes were translated for Anglophone audiences for a number of years. It wasn't until 2002 that the whole thing was accessible to a non-Japanese audience. Even so, given the bleak content of the show, it was rare to find the whole thing broadcast all at once. Many networks were reluctant to air a show that was so explicitly gay or so explicit in its portrayal of feminine trauma. Fans searched to find the episodes they'd missed, led to the formation of a cult fandom trolling through obscure forums to try and find the whole thing. It wasn't until after the 2009 remaster that box sets of the series became accessible and people could legitimately watch it all at once without resorting to outright piracy. The movie, Adolescence of Utena, aired in theatres in Japan in 1999 as a sort of reimagining of the series, or maybe a sequel but also not a sequel. We will cover it in full later. It was released to the Anglophone world in 2001, with viewings primarily in anime conventions rather than movie theatres. It was remastered and re-released in 2010 with the rest of the TV series. There's a hell of a lot more context around its convoluted production and release, but I'm aiming to keep this part somewhat light because we have a lot of other content to get through. So, what is this show? And what's it about? Well, here's the one-paragraph Wikipedia blurb. Utena Tenjo is a teenage girl who wishes to become a dashing hero and because of it gets caught up in a strange dueling game played by her fellow middle and high schoolers. As Utena fights to protect and befriend Anthy Himemiya, her shy classmate but also the mysterious Rose bride at the center of the duels, the stakes become higher and the game more dangerous. I, however, find this blurb insufficient. At its core, Utena is about breaking out of cycles of abuse, oppression and learned helplessness. It's also a love story and a coming-of-age narrative with a cast of well-developed characters, complex relationships, and an unflinching look at the horrors of abuse that many people endure. The show is brilliantly crafted, a beautiful story, and has wonderful characterization and artistry throughout. But it would be irresponsible of me to discuss it without some of the major content warnings of the subject matter. It includes physical abuse, animal death, emotional manipulation, mental abuse, sexual abuse including CSA, grooming, predation, and a very harrowing but honest look at how victims of abuse are mistreated by society. It is never gratuitous in its portrayal of abuse. The abusers are characterized thoroughly as the villains. It uses discretion in its shots. The victims retain agency over their narrative throughout. It is quite possibly the best I have ever seen any story handle the above themes, but please be aware that they are there, and if any of these things are triggering for you, then please be careful. I'm going to talk about all of that, a whole lot. With that all being said, let's delve into this anime. Gather round for the show, for the Shadowblade girls sure do have a masterpiece of a performance for you tonight. Please, take a seat. Get comfortable. Let our story commence. The story. The Student Council arc. Our story opens with a fairy tale. Once upon a time, years and years ago, there was a princess who was very sad, for her mother and father had died. Before this princess appeared a travelling prince on a white horse. His appearance gallant and his smile gentle, the prince enveloped the princess in the scent of roses and said, "Little one, bearing up alone in such deep sorrow, lose not your strength or nobility, even when you grow up. As a token of this day, take this." "Pray, will I ever meet you again?" asked the princess. "This ring should guide thee to me one day," replied the prince. Was the ring the prince gave her an engagement ring? Well, this was all well and good, but the princess was so impressed by the prince that she vowed to become a prince herself one day. But was that really such a good idea? In the style of shadow puppets, our characters' features are shadows and outlines, though their costumes are bright and colourful. What we see are not people so much as archetypes. This is a tale of tropes and ideas. A lost princess and a handsome prince, a knight in shining armour, a hero to save the day. This could be a stand-in for anyone, no? Didn't you, dear viewer, view yourself as a one-day princess or knight in shining armour when you heard fairy tales as a young child? Didn't we all try to see ourselves as reflected in such cliches before we learned that they were just storytelling tropes? But this fairy tale is a rather sad one, a tale of longing and loss, and of a brief moment of respite, as is the case for many a princess in fairy tales. Our princess is trapped, but in this instance it isn't a tower or a dragon keeping her hostage, as much as it is her own grief. The princess here, implied to be Utena, is a vulnerable orphan. Don't we all want to be rescued by a knight in shining armour, a fantastic, larger-than-life hero come to save us from the tragedy of life we find ourselves in? Don't we all want salvation? So many of us desperately crave it in the arms of a lover, be it a gallant, caring gentleman, a manic pixie dream girl, or some other idealized version of romantic love. Surely it isn't wrong to want such a thing, is it? There are a couple of small fragments in these frames where we see the characters' faces and features. In full noble regalia, they are fairy tale versions of themselves, transformed from the mundane appearances of their regular existence into the pantomime roles that they are here to play. The most striking moment is of Utena receiving her ring, the one thing she can remember in full, concrete detail. Love shall save us, and our protagonist Utena is the damsel in distress to be saved. Except, passively waiting for salvation is foolish, isn't it? Apathy is death, right? Why sit back and wait when you can take charge of your own destiny for yourself? A wise man once said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world," and if I wish to see those who suffer rescued from their pain, like me, then shouldn't I strive to be the person who does the rescuing? Shouldn't I do my best to be the hero? So believes Utena, our protagonist. Fuck gender roles. Become the knight in shining armour yourself, even if you started as the damsel in distress. This is a good feminist message, right? Taking one's own agency back and becoming the hero. If that were the whole message of the show, I could conclude my analysis right here and now. But this level of shallow feminism is hardly everything this show has to say. This fairy tale, this mythology, is how we shall begin almost every episode of the show, a daily reminder of the foundations of noble chivalry that Utena and we as the audience start out with. Is it naive? Well, perhaps. But what is the difference between naivete and idealism?
っていうのは僕はやっぱり TA にちゃんの頃からね。
During the process of getting from the plan to the production deal, I needed to convey the image of the show to a lot of stakeholders in a way that would be easy to understand. So I made the written plan, and it's something like this type of thing. And in fact, it got the gist across, and I think it's what got us a green light on the production. However, when we finally entered the production stage, I was plagued with worry. Suddenly, I was brooding over what the show's originality really was. Style of expression is key in a TV series. A unique individuality. A mode no one has ever seen before. There was this pressure of, I have to make this a show with a special type of visual expression. That's the only way people will want it. I decided to use Absolute Destiny Apocalypse, and that prompted a switch to flip in my mind. Within myself, I could sense that this would be a special show. But it was hard to explain that specialness to the public during pre-production. I talked about the story, I explained the characters, but no matter how bombastic I was, nobody understood me past the level of, it sounds like an eccentric show. So all throughout the pre-production, I had these pangs of guilt, like I was deceiving someone. And then, the first episode was given sound at last. It was complete. The impression of the first stakeholder to watch it was something along the lines of, huh? What is this?
The first episode of our show now actually opens in full. A gaggle of teenagers approach a beautiful high school, though the aesthetics of this place of learning far more closely resemble the marble palaces of European royalty rather than any regular school. Utena's best friend, a girl called Wakaba, bluffs that she is waiting on her boyfriend to walk to school with, though her classmates immediately call her out on this and imply that this so-called boyfriend is really Utena. We are already playing fast and loose with gender roles here. Utena herself is shown to wear a femme-cut version of a boy's uniform, win against the boys at basketball, and be the subject of general female adoration, already making headway into her goal of becoming a knight in shining armor or a prince, while still retaining an otherwise inherently feminine coded identity. She wanders past the school's rose garden and finds her mind wandering to the past. She looks at the ring on her fingers, and we are led to believe that there may have in fact been some truth to the monomyth-like fairy tale told at the start of the story. Or, at the very least, that Utena believes wholeheartedly in that myth. The rose garden itself is where we see our first glimpse of Anthe Hememia, the second major character of our story. She is first introduced to us as an attraction, someone to idealize, as symbolized by the quite literal rose-tinted framing, before she is unceremoniously dragged away. This idealization attraction is not to last. Instead, we are made to see her as a victim. Within moments of seeing her, Utena witnesses Anthe being physically slapped by her apparent boyfriend, a green-haired boy named Sayonji. Sayonji is prevented from continuing his assault by yet another boy, the red-haired Toga. We quickly learn that Toga is the president of the student council and Sayonji is the vice president. Both boys are in positions of authority and power, and Sayonji is already misusing it. Utena is accosted by her friend Wakaba, and we learn that Wakaba herself has a crush on Sayonji. Wakaba and Utena engage in some queer-coded banter, though the tone remains light-hearted, in stark contrast to the physical abuse that we have just witnessed. We're already being introduced to a complex web of high school drama, so I don't blame you if you need to take a moment to pause to take all that in.
You know how long this video is going to be if you keep telling people to pause it? Stay strong, people. Increase that engagement. Like and subscribe while you're at it.
I made this video as a love letter to Revolutionary Girl Utena. I don't particularly think that we need to interrupt it in a half-hearted attempt to boost its stats.
We're just trying to help. Jeez, if you didn't want us here, you should have made us part of the student council.
Hold on. Are you eating Pop-Tarts? Wait, no. That doesn't matter. Sol, how does this even work?
What do you mean?
Well, what's the narrative here? We're the student council at Atori Academy, so does this mean you're making this video from Atori Academy as part of, what, a senior thesis or something?
I think you're overthinking this.
Or maybe you're underthinking this?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just get back to the video now?
Notice how she did not answer the question.
Did not answer the question.
Back to the summary and the student council that we actually care about here. There is a sharp change of scene as we are introduced to some of the other members of the student council. Saionji has been called before them to answer for his treatment of Anthe and is berated by Toga, as well as a blue-haired boy called Mickey and a ginger-haired girl called Juri. Of note, they do not refer to Anthe by name and merely call her the Rose Bride. She is already being objectified. Saionji defends his abusive actions, stating that what he does with the Rose Bride is his own business. Anthe, stating that she is Saionji's bride, confirms that she is indeed his to do with as he wills, though her body language hardly conveys enthusiastic consent in the matter. Saionji leaves, telling the student council that if they have such concern for the fate of the Rose Bride, that they should just duel him for her, as per the apparent rules of this mysterious student council. The objectification of Anthe has been immediate, and while the other members of the student council express concern for her, they have been doing so in a way that still objectifies her. Anthe's personhood has not mattered to a single member of the student council. She has been reduced to an object, a prize, a bride. She seems to have internalized that role too, though she appears rather unhappy about it. The fact that she is the only person of color amongst the students too cannot be understated. The themes of dehumanization as a consequence of colonialism and racism must be acknowledged too, even if this anime does not delve them in as much depth as its other themes. For her femininity, for her smallness, for her ethnicity, for many reasons, Anthe is treated as someone without agency, without humanity. To the council, she is a highly valued, decorative object. To say that she is treated as disposable is incorrect. She is very clearly highly prized. She is very clearly not disposable to the student council members. But to claim that you care about someone merely because you believe them to be of high value, without actually treating them as a person, is a willful misinterpretation of what it means to care about someone. Caring about another person means caring about them as a whole and complete human. Not as an object, not for what they can do for you, not for the false idealistic imaginings of what you want to believe they are, for them, as they actually are, not just as a means to an end. Thus far, it seems that Anthe has never experienced this kind of care. As Saionji leaves, Toga gives him the warning that soon another duelist will arrive and likely challenge him for the bride, and conveniently, all the student council members, the duelists, have rose insignia rings, much like Utena's. Utena seems destined to become the next duelist. What does this mean for Anthe? Is Utena going to be a true gallant prince, riding on a noble steed to rescue her from the monster that is Saionji? Or is she merely going to become the next in line to dehumanize Anthe by seeing her as a prize to be cherished and owned? Later that day, Utena and Wakaba pass by a notice board to find a private love confession written by Wakaba to Saionji has been tacked up for everyone to read. Wakaba, humiliated, runs away in tears. Utena, ever the fool, does not go after Wakaba to help comfort or console her. She instead goes to Saionji directly to confront him. Is this a naive move? Almost certainly yes. Is this tied to ambitions of prince-like masculine coded values, fighting and confrontation before comfort and healing? Perhaps. Will this help anything? Hard to say. But I can't blame Utena for this. Who wouldn't want to defend their friend against scummy bullies? She challenges Saionji to a kendo duel as a way to teach him a lesson. Nobody bullies her friends, after all. Saionji accepts, though unexpectedly doesn't duel her in the school's gym, and instead bids her come to the mysterious forest outside the school, the one that no one is allowed into. We bear witness to another play, performed by the pantomime Shadow Puppets. Hello, familiar tragedian and executor.
お勇者様、お友達のために戦うおせっかいな勇者様。でも勇者様、森には掟があること。果たしてあなたはご存知かしら？かしらご存知かしら？
Unaware of the trouble that she is about to embroil herself in, Utena approaches the forest at night. She reaches the gates of judgment and is considered worthy. She has ventured away from the mundane and into the fantastical. Metaphor and reality blend into one, and for the entirety of the show's run, the difference between what is literally happening and what is metaphorical or ephemeral is left intentionally vague. Behind the gates of judgment is a seemingly endless spiral staircase, turning round and around in circles yet moving ever upwards, a visual representation of revolution, turning around a cycle, and yet the staircase still ends up somewhere new despite going back on itself. The music swells as the unseen Greek chorus sings of the absolute destiny apocalypse, of the end of the world, of a golden mythical paradise of death and rebirth, of apocalyptic cycles ending and beginning and ending eternally. References to Buddhism, Christian Gnosticism, and apocalyptic religion abound. Finally, at the top of the staircase, Utena can see an enormous fairy tale castle floating in the sky. The world of the unreal and metaphorical is made intensely, viscerally real and present. Saionji, waiting for her, merely dismisses it as an optical illusion, like a mirage, or a trick of the light. In many more ways than he realizes, he is right. There are multiple layers of dramatic irony to this sentiment. Saionji is wearing a military-styled officer's jacket complete with aiguillette, and Anthy is bedecked in an ornate dress reminiscent of red flowers. Anthy's presence is explained by Saionji as being entirely natural. She is the Rose Bride, and it is the Rose Bride's function to be part of these ritualistic jewels. Anthy places a single green rose on Saionji's chest, and a corresponding white one on Utena's uniform. The scent of roses gives Utena a brief flashback to her fantasy-addled memories of the handsome prince who saved her from her childhood grief, though how accurate this memory is left unclear. Anthy gives Utena a simple set of instructions. If the rose is knocked from her chest, she loses the jewel. She bids Utena good luck, and is immediately physically assaulted by Saionji again. Saionji expresses a disgusting sense of ownership over Anthy in a way that is obvious and without subtlety. As he believes he literally owns her, he believes he is entitled to beat her when she wishes his opponent good luck. It is hardly difficult to characterize Saionji as an unforgivable villain at this point in the narrative. He is, of course, far more complex than just that, but for now, we may keep our view of him as a straightforward antagonist. That is how Utena currently sees him, after all, and she isn't entirely wrong to do so. His acts of physical abuse are entirely indefensible. Anthy chooses to accept this abuse. She expresses the belief that she is literally the property of her dueling champion. To fight back would be to reject her role, to reject her entire identity as the Rose Bride. Enraged, Utena is baited entirely into the duel, to defend not only her friend Wakaba, but to stop Saionji's abuse. The dueling game seems stupid, but if joining the system is the best way to save someone, is that not the morally correct thing to do? She is, of course, being entirely manipulated. She is young, naive, and headstrong. Wannabe heroes are, like that. And, hey, if you were a Rose Bride, a paragon image of femininity trapped and abused, wouldn't you be happy at the idea of someone wanting to fight for you? Wouldn't it be reassuring that someone gave enough of a damn about you to act like you were worth fighting for? And so, the duel begins. Anthy steps forward, summoning light from her breast, bidding the power of Dios that resides within her to come forth and manifest as a sword. In an act that seems distinctly sexualized, she arches her back and allows Saionji to hold her, withdrawing the blade from her chest. To summon the blade is an act of intimacy, and intimacy is demanded from femininity. After all, intimacy and sexuality is a woman's role, right? There to provide sexuality, sensuality, and comfort to the man that literally owns her. If you are uncomfortable and slightly horrified, that is the point. So is our darling Utena. Isn't this even more of a reason to beat the toxic masculinity out of this horrible little asshole? With reckless abandon, Utena draws her wooden kendo blade and fights, though a wooden sparring stick is no match against the sword of Dios, a quite literal, sharp metal sword. Saionji regards her as some pathetic creature entirely beneath him, and mocks her heroic desire to be a knight in shining armor, there to rescue a damsel in distress. What a fool she is, believing in fairy tales. Doesn't she know that the real world is harsh and cynical, where the strong just take what they want? It just so happens that he is the strongest. To Saionji's current philosophy, justice doesn't matter when might makes right, a philosophy commonly espoused by abusers, fools, and those whose main desire is to dodge accountability. Utena, courage and rage filling her veins, stands to fight anyway, even with a broken wooden sword, because who cares if the fight seems hopeless when there's something important to fight for? This philosophy, this reckless abandon to do the right thing regardless of personal cost, is the opposing ideal that Utena adopts throughout the show. The ideal of the selfless hero, the idea of the knight in shining armor, the ideal of a prince. We as the audience see a figure of the handsome prince from her memories, encouraging her to stay true to her ideals, to never lose heart or hope. Inspired with all the courage of a magical girl, she stands and fights. Brave? Yes. Foolish? Yes. And a more cynical person would tell her this was dumb, but damn it, isn't cynicism just a rationalization of cowardice? Fuck this guy, and fuck his shitty toxic masculinity, and fuck his abuse. She lunges. Saionji turns to gloat at his victory, and yet Utena's rose remains intact. Saionji, for all his bluster, has lost. There's a sense of catharsis and thrill from this. An obvious villain has fallen, and an obvious hero has risen. Hell fucking yeah, good guys win, bad guys lose. Anthy turns to Saionji, and with a careful, practiced smile, tells him to cheer up. She no longer calls him master, a subtlety perhaps missed in the dub of the translation. She no longer addresses Saionji with any sense of affection. She is free.
Anshi!
ごきげんよう、西園寺先輩。
This change in honorific denotes that there is perhaps no more intimacy between them. She is free. Or is she? Church bells ring, signaling the end of the duel. Bells symbolizing victory, resolution, and the return of peace, much like the ringing of bells in European towns at the end of a war or the beginning of a holy celebration. Far, far away, seemingly standing on castle ramparts, Student Council President Toga observes the duel and comments his intrigue at Utena's recent victory. Hungry as a predator, he states that Utena has quote-unquote lit the fires to his heart. Viewing her as much through the objectifying lens as he viewed Anthy, the lens in this case is rather literal. We see a brief image of the top of the dueling arena from afar, looking to all the world like an enormous rose on a thorny stem. Roses and romance are intimately intertwined, standing as a symbol for chivalry and idealism, or perhaps as a symbol for childish fantasy and naivety, or perhaps just as a fantasy for simple love and blossoming romance. Perhaps it's all of these, perhaps it's none. As Utena returns to her dormitory, she seems to want to leave the strangeness of the day behind her. As much as she wants to be a hero, she would rather not involve herself so directly in the student council's weird dueling games. She has achieved her goals of beating the toxic masculinity out of a fuckboy, and that's all that needs to happen. Except Anthy approaches her. She does not introduce herself as Anthy, however, but as the Rose Bride. And, as if it was as natural as breathing, utters the words, "From this day forward, I belong to you." Said as benignly and with as much care as a marriage vow, the implications of this are going to sit heavily for the rest of the series. We see that Anthy is not free. The Rose Bride is a bride, and her engagement to another, her role, her existence at all in this identity, is an act of servitude. Much as she has been freed from one abuser, she remains trapped by the system, trapped by her identity within the system. What we've seen here has been a dissection of the nature of abuse, and the natures of expected roles of men and women, and however we might try to subvert, change, or destroy them, that the system as a whole is deeply, deeply flawed and will try to perpetuate these roles.
What's up, sports fans? It's your girl, Playa North, bringing you the content you've been waiting for all video. So without further ado, let's get started with the slap date.
Whoa, hold on. What are you doing?
The slap date.
Okay, look, you keep saying slap date like it's a real word that I should just know, but that is a fake word that you have just made up just now.
This one, am I right? Talking about the absolute destiny apocalypse over here, but doesn't even know what the slap date is.
I was just discussing some really serious issues regarding abuse and gender roles, and now you are yelling about sports. Why are you interrupting me?
So we're friends and I love you, but we really need to work on your listening skills. As I've already said multiple times now, I'm here for the slap date. This doesn't concern you. Just go to the corner of the student council balcony for a moment.
Hold on, that doesn't concern me. This is my video. Do you know how much time, how much energy, how many words I put into this work?
Oh gosh, yes. Yes, so many words. The script just keeps going and going. I mean, that's your absolute destiny apocalypse right there.
Wait, what, hold on, what?
Listen, you've worked hard. Treat yourself to a little break while I take care of the slap date for the sports fans. Sionji has started with strong season opening, coming out of the gate with 2 slaps. I'm sure fans of the Lettuce Boy are cheering at home right now.
I'm sorry, are you giving the slaps tallies?
Oh my gosh, Soul, I told you I was giving the slap date. It's right there in the name.
You were literally celebrating abuse right now.
Absolutely! You cut me off before I could get there. So while our slappers scoreboard is currently Sionji 2, everyone else 0, let's move on to the slappies.
You have got to be kidding me.
Team Rosebride getting an impressive start, with Anthe being the recipient of not one, but both of Sionji's slaps. The rest of Otori Academy should look out, because the Rosebride once again seems like a strong contender this season.
I regret asking you to help me with this video.
Well, that wraps up our slap date, sports fans. This is Playhead North signing off, and I look forward to seeing you at the end of the next episode summary.
Oh, no.
Huh, that's so weird. Wonder how that could have happened.
seem pleased to see me, and I find myself wondering for what reason that could be. Let me just take a gander. Once upon a time I stole your man and then it broke your heart, because I took what was yours, or at least that was what I thought. Can I speak with some candor? Well, you look so fine, but you have a disease, and it seems to be that you are so ill at ease with me. Why ever could that be? I've spent my life with you up on a pedestal, knowing that I could never stand it. So I'm still weak, but I think I know your secret, the one you hold the deepest. I'll see me in your stocking. I'll see me in your stocking. You had said I would have sent a better picture. In the night I'm watching you, watching me, thinking
I could fix her.
you're so hysterical.
I mean, really. I can't stop laughing. It's constant gagging.
You're making me so maniacal. We might have been childhood friends way back when. You'd like that again. Return to how it used to be, when it was just you and me and him, but not really him. I see that now. I couldn't abscond with a boy you didn't want, and yet still I dealt you a blow. I love the look in your eyes as I hurt you so. You look so fine, but you have a disease, and it seems to be that you are so ill at ease with me. Whatever could that be? I've spent my life with you up on a pedestal, knowing that I could never stand it. So I'm still weak, but I think I know your secret, the one you hold the deepest. I'll see me in your stocking. I'll see me in your stocking. I crave the power to change the world. I have the flower and I promise I would. I only have to win some duel to create a place where you're the one who's futile. I'm standing here and looking you in the eye. My path is clear and for once we are aligned. You no longer look down on me. I always thought you were strong, now it's you who's weak.
Like, let's say, hypothetically, you could turn into an automobile. It would be a mistake to assume I couldn't turn into a car, too. When you look so fine,
but you have a disease, and it seems to be that you are so ill at ease with me.
Whatever could that one be?
yes, I wonder.
I've spent my life with you up on a pedestal, knowing that I could never compete at all. Now you're beat, 'cause I seem to see your secret, the one you hold the deep.